Oh, she's saying whenever.
Okay, everybody. Welcome to Friends on Friday. We're going to start out. Well, oh, shoot, that's my last one. Just a minute. I wanted to let everybody at home know if they want to ask any questions to just text me, and I'll get them here and be able to answer them for you. Okay. So let's get back to slide one. There's slide one. Okay. Chrys and I met when we were 15 years old. We got married in our early 20s. We had kids when we were late 20s, moved to Germany, moved back, Wisconsin, North Carolina, then over to Brookwood, and Bob's your uncle. That was it. So, anyhow, we called it a sojourn because we knew we weren't going to be there very long. And so, sojourn means it's just a temporary place, and it was a temporary place. So, we were oh, yeah. This is heart-wrenching. It really is. Okay, when we were getting ready, we had to sell our house, but it was fairly easy because the company I worked for took 3 different estimates. They had some calculation that they made, I think, including the speed of light squared, but I'm not sure, and gave us an offer, and we accepted it, and so we didn't have to worry about selling the house. We had to decide what to do about appliances because different voltage, different cycles and all that, and so we decided, what the heck, let's get some American size appliances because the German appliances were relatively small. And we did, and they were delivered to the house, and so they were going to be packaged with everything else. Then we had to rehome our dogs. Now, let me point out something here. As you can see, this was our beautiful shag carpet. Shag carpet. And you see that other carpet right under there? That was the line of demarcation for our dogs. And you can see that Joni was pushing it a little bit. But anyhow, we did rehome the dogs. They were both sent to the same place. Chrys was the one that interviewed the people, which was good because, she's more the animal person than I am. But anyhow, they went to the same place, and we expect that they were happy. What about our cars? We had 2 cars, and I remember that, this is 45 years ago. I remember that we put one of the cars in the newspaper, and son of a gun, it sold. I have no idea what we did with the other car. It could still be sitting in that driveway. I'm not sure. We had to make decisions about packing because we had to take we had a 9-month-old baby, and so we had to have a lot of things that went with her, and that was going to have to go on the plane with us, and then we had things that were going to go in the packing container, and that was going to be on the sea, and it was going to take it a month to get there, and so there was a lot of decisions to be made. And the day that they started packing us, it was amazing. It says there, they were like locusts, and they really were. You looked in one room, and all of a sudden, everything is just all packed. You looked in another room, oh, wait a minute. I got a text. Okay. Oh, someone wants to know, why did we make the move? Okay, yeah, it's a phone number. The last numbers are 69. I'm not going to, give anybody's full phone number here, but why did we move? The company I worked for I was doing a job in the United States, and the company asked me to do the same job except over in Europe. And so we said, okay, we'll do that. But we had to be interviewed by my boss. And so we did the interview and all that stuff. But one thing stuck with me more than anything. He said, And who knows, when you come back to the United States, maybe your friends won't hold it against you. I thought, oh, that's crazy, yeah. So anyhow, but that stuck with me. But again, so it was the company that wanted us to move there, and you know, I guess one of the questions I have of Chris is, what did you think when we were trying to decide to go?
You know, I didn't know how we could pass it up. You know?
Yeah. Now, I had been to Europe once for one business trip. Chris had never been there. And so when all of our worldly goods were on the water, Chris was on her way to a place she'd never been to before, ever. And so that was a big step. Okay. I got another text. This is from, last numbers are 32. What was the most awkward thing to be packed? Well, I think it was probably your dad's, your grandfather's rocking chair.
Probably.
Probably.
The most surprising thing was, apparently we've been putting Coke tops in one of the drawers, and they're like locusts, they just took everything. So we open it up, and there are all these Coke tops.
But I asked the people that were moving us, I said, what's the most unusual thing that you were asked to package? And they said, a cord of wood. Oh, wow. Individual pieces of wood were packaged and put into the container. Yeah, but, you know, maybe they were moving to Saudi Arabia, I don't know. Okay. This was the small, it really was. It was a small container compared to the container when we came home. But it was like a jigsaw puzzle. They were putting all these things in there, and you could see that they were looking around to see, okay, there's this, I can put that up there, and then one guy came over and asked you for something.
Yeah, you have something like that big, about that big.
Yeah. She said no. He said, I got a good place for it. Okay, but anyhow. But that was it.
Well, the other thing of note about those containers is they're set on a ship. If something bumps them and they go off into the ocean, it's bye-bye.
Well, anyhow, we landed. Everything was fine. We had 11 pieces of luggage because of, and you know, they weren't all big pieces, but we had 11 pieces. We were picked up by one of the other expats that worked for International Harvester, and it was the first time that I had met him, and it was the first time you'd met him, but you know, we assumed that he was okay, so we got in the car with him. But we didn't know what the procedure was. What did we have to do next? And so someone at the office said, well, here's the first thing you have to do is you have to sign up with the Gesundheitsamt, you know, to make sure that you didn't have tuberculosis.
That's the Good Health Office.
Yeah, the Gesundheitsamt. We had to also go to the tax office and tell them, in addition to what we were going to be doing and all that, what our religion was, and I couldn't figure that out. But if you were Catholic, you had your income was taxed at 2%, just for the church. If you were, I think it was Protestant, I think it was 3%, and if you were Jewish, it was 6%.
Whoa.
This is 45 years ago. Things may have changed, probably not, but things may have changed. Someone found a hotel for us. Thing is, it was breakfast only. So we had to find places to eat, you know, out with a small child. And that became a little bit of a problem, but we found, I'll go to that next, but we had to buy a car. And that was relatively easy again because the purchasing department there said, how much you want to spend? And I said, not much. And so we got a Polo, and a Polo is a Volkswagen. When Chris and I got in the front seat, our elbows touched. It was small. It really was. And then we got into the meetings with the other expats from my age.
There were only 3 other couples.
Yeah, 3 other couples. Now, this, on the left here, is the Park Hotel Atlantic. That's where we were put up. Now, this is a recent picture of it. I didn't have a picture back then. I said, I'm never going to have to do a presentation about this ever. And this one, this is the Zoom Ritter. And Warren, you saw the Zoom Ritter when you were there recently. Right here, this white building here, down below, that was an Italian restaurant. And we learned to love it there because we would take our daughter in, they would see us, they would take our daughter and walk her around everywhere while we had dinner. Yeah, she got to see the kitchen. Yeah.
Well,
We never did.
there were no high chairs. So you had to hold this child or lay her on a bench, but that's it, you know?
That was amazing. Okay. Okay. German lessons. Well, another text. Could you speak any German before the move? I could count to 10, so I wasn't starting with nothing. But I had a tutor, and it was a one-on-one situation with the tutor. And this guy was fabulous. He could speak 6 languages, and he taught himself the last 4. Oh, wow. Unbelievable. We started with German and English, but that was like the first day. And then after that, it was just all German. And I tell you, it was confusing. But I had a primer, too. And it was a kid's book from grade school. That's how he learned the other languages. So he said, this is a good way for him to win. Okay. It says 50 50 up there. When I was in the office, the people in the office wanted to learn how to speak English, and I wanted to learn how to speak German. So I spoke German to them, and they replied in English. It's amazing how I never got the answers to the questions I asked. Couldn't have been my fault. Okay. And once I got into, knowing the language a little bit better and all that stuff, I had to start being a little bit careful. Because, as it says up there, Jungfrau or junge Frau. One of them is a young lady, the other one is a virgin. And so, when you're referring to someone, you want to make sure you had it right. Okay, familiar and formal forms. This amazing, the German language. The tense, or not the tense, but the verb and the subject changed, depending on whether you were talking to a friend or a child, and a person that was your equal. So if it was your equal, you said Sie for you, Y-O-U, or if it was a child or your friend, it was a du, D-U. So that became kind of problematic too. And you throw all that stuff in. Then dialects. Chris, tell them about dialects.
Oh, well, they aren't just like Southern, slangs. They actually have different words. Some of the town next to us, the old people couldn't speak. They were just like 3 kilometers away, and they couldn't speak to each other very well because of their dialects. And so there would be like a chicken in one town would be a han, and in the other one it would be, I think it was a gockel. It was a gockel. So, there were just different words.
Yeah. Well, I know one very same thing with St. Leon and Roth, 3 kilometers apart. 13 Uhr was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was also 1 Uhr Nachmittag, 1 hour afternoon. In Roth, it was uns. Yes?
You had a tutor. Chris, did you have a tutor?
Oh,
Eventually, I went to Berlitz.
That's the next slide. no. This is when Chrys gets into her own, when she starts talking about this. Okay, let's see. Nope. Okay, so see, I told you.
So
German lessons for Chrys.
the first problem was we had this 9-month-old, and John, of course, was at work or gone, and you had to find a babysitter. Well, babysitters are few and far between in Germany because the Oma takes care of them, you know. And so it turned out I had an American friend that I met there, and she had a child the same age. And so what we did is her Putzfrau, the lady who cleaned for her, said she'd take care of the children while we went to lessons. So we went to Berlitz in a nearby town, and we had weekly classes, and we had individual German instructors. And so you walked into this room where there was a table and a chair, and the instructor said about the table, "Das ist der Tisch." Wiederholen bitte, repeat. And then they would say, "Das ist die Boden," you know, "Das ist der Deckel, das ist der Wand." But they would never speak English to us. Never. They were like university students. They'd never speak English. And so then after 50 minutes, we get a break, and they would change teachers so that you weren't mimicking the one you had. And also then the first one would let you get away with some things and the second one wouldn't. So, but it was surprising, you know, that they'd only speak German. Do you want me to tell about the siren now?
Yeah.
So I was sitting there with this person who wouldn't speak English to me, and I heard this air raid siren go off. And I'm from Kansas. That means there's going to be a tornado. And so I finally said to her, what is this? And she said, "Oh, that's in case of war." And I said, "Oh my God, my child's far away. What am I going to do?" But yeah.
Okay.
Can you have a question?
Oh, yes, please.
When you went to the restaurant and there's no high chair, what do the German people do with their babies?
Don't take them.
They just don't go.
They might take their dog, but they wouldn't take their kid.
Okay, living in St. Leon, that's the small town that we moved to. Again, the purchasing department got us in contact with the proper realtors and all that stuff, and they said, you know, Germans don't move that much, so finding a home to rent is going to be kind of difficult, but there's a new subdivision going in a little town called St. Leon. So this was going to be where we were going to live. And it wasn't quite finished, but that's all right. And the thing that's interesting is, yes.
Is that your roller skate out in front of that building?
Yeah, don't ask me that. Of course it was. No.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's the Polo. That's it. That's the Polo. Son of a gun. Good car.
A polo is smaller than a rabbit. Rabbit's big compared to it. Yeah.
Okay. And in a German house, whether it be new or old, there are no kitchen cabinets, there are no light fixtures, there are no closets, and this one in particular had no phone line because it was a new subdivision. So
The reason there are no closets is because if you had indented closets like we have, that was considered another room, and they get more taxes on them. You have wardrobes. I don't know about the cabinets. The cabinets actually hung on the wall. You know how ours are secured. Well, they had hanger things. They hung them on so that you could take them with when you left.
And for the first 3 months that we were in the house, we had no kitchen cabinets yet. We were living in the house, but guess where the dishes got washed?
In the bathroom. Oh, yeah, it was lots of fun because we had the oven in the kitchen, and you know, all German doors, they close the door to the kitchen. And so I had to put a baby gate across there so my daughter wouldn't go in, and then I had to climb over it with dishes to go clean and back again.
Oh, she was good. She was good. Okay.
What do old people do there?
They live with their kids.
And that was my plan, too.
Yeah.
You poo-pooed it. Okay, this was our address. Einsteinstrasse 1, 6837 St. Leon Road 1, BRD, which meant the Bundesrepublik of Deutschland, okay, and the Federal Republic of Germany. But, interesting, Einsteinstrasse was this street going up here. There's our front door. So that was Dreystrasse. And no one had a problem with that. I don't understand that, but they didn't. So anyhow, but Einsteinstrasse was only one of the streets that had scientist names. They had Röntgenstrasse, they had Daimlerstrasse, they had,
Which is natural, it's their country, but still.
yeah. Okay. Interesting also, if you live in a neighborhood, you swept the street. You kept your street nice and clean up to the middle of the street, except, nice people wouldn't do it the whole street, And we were on a corner, so Chrys had a lot of things to, to sweep.
In those days, a lot of things were controlled by peer pressure. So, if they said you were to do this, you did this, or your neighbors would talk about you.
Yeah. Well, and, truly, going down the list, Sundays were special because you couldn't have laundry on the lines. You couldn't wash your cars on Sundays. You went for afternoon walks, which was okay. And daily salutation. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, well, you'd say Guten Morgen when you went in someplace. If you saw somebody on the street and you made eye contact, you would dip your head. And if you walked up to, like, say there were two of you walking up to a store door, the closest person had priority. So, it was just very orderly.
Yeah. It was orderly, and it was kind, too, because I could see someone just hobbling up toward the door, and I could go, man, I can beat that person and get in there first. But, they didn't do that. Watch your language.
So I had an American friend who went to the local, we had little corner stores in part of it. And, we could all speak a little bit of German, and the people had talked to you a bit, the lady behind the desk, and checking you out. And so she walked up to the line, and she had all these cigarette packs. And she meant to say, my husband smokes a lot. And she said, my husband stinks a lot. And the lady behind the desk said, yes, I imagine he does. Oh, well, so the store hours in our small town, now it was different in the city, but they opened at 8, they closed at noon, they opened at 1, and they're open till 5. And that was it. Then that was 5 days a week. And then on Saturday, they were open at 8 until 12. And then our poor young American hearts, they didn't open again until Monday. You were like, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Let's eat out. Picture's worth 100 words, not 1,000, 100. I don't want to exaggerate. But when we bought baby food, couldn't speak the language, so we looked for pictures on the bottles. It's, well, we're not going to eat a baby. That's all what was on there was a baby. Okay, so carrots. Yep, this kid's going to love carrots. I can see that's a carrot. But it was different things like that. We had to kind of rely on. Did we get a book to translate? Nah, we need no stinking book. We can do it. This was interesting also. Ultra Hochzeite Milch, which was now in the States it's called shelf-stable milk. It's not refrigerated, and no one knows how long it'll last. But, you can buy a carton, I mean, a case of it, and have it in your house and never put it in the refrigerator. And as you need it, you can get one out and maybe put it in the refrigerator and so it
When you
cools
opened
off.
it. Yeah, when you opened it, you put it in.
Yeah, after you open it then,
Yeah.
yes. But it was something we weren't used to, and so we were, you drink it. I'm not going to drink it.
The Germans didn't like a lot of things from the refrigerator. They felt that it bothered your stomach. I know our daughter, we were at some group thing and she threw up one time and they said, oh, that's because you gave her something from the refrigerator.
Okay, got another text from 32. How long did it take you to get a phone?
Oh, my. 6
It
months?
took like 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that it became a problem, and you'll see that in just a minute. But the person that was in charge of facilities at the plant that I worked at, did it just quit? No, hello. He knew the people at the phone company, and so they were able to help us get on the list faster than most people, and it still took 6 months. Wow. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, and when you think about it, we didn't have anybody to call. We didn't know anybody.
Yeah, well,
And if you called home, it was, I think, $11 or $12 per 3 minutes. So, you weren't going to call United States.
and the breads, let's talk about that. They had wonderful breads, but
They did.
you bought them every day. They didn't last very long because there were no preservatives, but they were still warm when you bought them.
But
so
the other thing about it is you couldn't get white bread unless you ordered it, and you could get it on Saturday. But the rest of the time, it was all rye breads and various and sundry other things.
What's this? Watch the cheese selection, Chris.
Oh, yeah, well, I was in the grocery store one day, and, it's hard. Anyway, they had this big glass case, and they have cheeses in it, just like the meat cases, And so then I'm saying, well, I want ein Pfund, which is a pound of that, and I want an ein Pfund of that. And so I'm going to check out, and I am with a small baby. I mean, she was in diapers, but I kept thinking, God, I smell something strange. This person behind me must really, And I got out to the car, and it was one of the cheeses I'd picked.
Did you eat it?
No, he did.
Yeah. Wouldn't drink the milk, though. Desserts.
Oh, yeah, so those are marzipan that you would put on a cake or whatever. And then this is called a konditorei instead of a bakery. A bakery only does bread, but the konditorei has, usually they have a tea set up, so you can get a piece of that and sit down and eat.
Okay. Spargel. Spargel is white asparagus.
And we lived in kind of the heart of the area where they
man.
raised it.
Yeah, but white asparagus. I was 29 years old, 28 years old. I was just getting to the point where I was accepting asparagus. And the smell of the pea, yes. But I looked at this, I said, okay, this is how they do it. They dig it out before it turns any type of green, and then they use a trowel to smooth it out again. They would go along this thing, and they would look for little cracks, because that's where it was starting to poke up. And so they little crack, and they go, we'll dig in here, and that's what they did.
And they had these long forks that they got it with, so.
It was locally grown, but it was tax-free for them. So, a lot of people love to have it as a product. This is what it looked like when they were selling it. I mean, they were completely white. Well,
The other thing about Spargel is there was a season. It was 6 weeks, and it was controlled by a office of some sort, and that's it. Where in the United States you can always get a little more, no, that was it. And then what they did was they fertilized the fields and put up signs, poison signs. So it was very strict. And you could get it anywhere. You could get it in all the restaurants, and they had all sorts of different ways to make it.
Okay, well, text with number 16 said, how was the asparagus prepared?
Oh, you had to peel it, you had to shale it, and then do whatever you were going to do,
You know,
we
steam it or
boiled it,
whatever?
yeah.
But they made soup out of it.
Right.
They made, actually, it was, you could have a complete meal except for dessert with, that was all spargel. It was amazing. Okay. I traveled, and I mean to tell you, I traveled a lot. And so Chrys was alone with our daughter Julie, and because we didn't have a phone, we had to make plans and ahead. Because Chrys took me to the train station in Heidelberg, and then she wouldn't see me again until I got off the train in Heidelberg at a predetermined time. Now, if
That was
something
Monday
changed,
through Friday, yeah.
if something changed, then I would send a telegram. And
And the telegram would have to go to Heidelberg because the people in our town couldn't speak English. And so then they would send it over to them in English. And then the Frau that lived upstairs would come over riding her bicycle with her apron on and everything and give me this telegram.
there was a lot of waiting time, I mean to tell you, because even knowing that I wasn't going to be home until like about 8 o'clock on Friday night, there would have to be a train that was going to be getting me in there about 8 o'clock, and maybe it wouldn't be until 9:30. That was the next train.
Oh, so then after I dropped John off at the train station in Heidelberg, then I would need to drive home. And you'd go on the Autobahn, and you'd drive, and if you were paying attention, you'd get off at the right exit. And sometimes I did not. So here I am careening around Germany with my daughter in the back seat, and there used to be there was a town named Hockenheim, which was one more down from us, and they had a racetrack there. It was called the Hockenheim Ring. So I knew when I passed that racetrack that I'd gone the wrong way, but if I got off, I could trace back on other roads back home. That only happened like 3 to 5 times.
Now, this is, getting into some of the stuff at work. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because we're already halfway through, and we got quite a few to go. Interesting, there was a union representative that was on the board of directors. So when they had a board of directors meeting about what was happening with IH Germany, the union knew what was going on. And so if you told the union representative, we can't give you more than 2% or 3%, whatever like that, they knew if it was true or not. And so there were very few strikes. Then we had the hierarchy. I'm going to step over in front of Chrys. Managing director was the highest one that we had at the plant. Then there was a plant manager, and then I was a director. That meant how much office space you got, if you had a secretary or two, and the company driver pickup and drop-off order. This is really amazing. The managing director and I both lived in Saint Leon. I didn't know that when we moved there, it just came to be. The plant manager lived in Heidelberg. So if the three of us went on a trip using the company driver, the first person to be picked up was me. And then we would go pick up the plant manager, drive all the way back to Heidelberg to pick him up. Then just a few blocks away from where I lived in order to get the managing director. And when we came back from a trip, he was dropped off first. I said, I can walk from here. And, nope. Went back to Heidelberg, dropped off the plant manager, and then back to our house.
You had places to sit in the car, right?
Yeah. Parking place was special regarding, whatever your lot was, and what cafeteria you had. And the reason I'm going over that quickly is because over here, it's the feel of work. The visible signs of status. First of all, if you were just a regular worker, you parked out in a parking lot that could have been, a quarter mile away from work. Then, if you got better, higher up, you got a parking row. Then you had assigned parking. And then if you were an executive, you got to park right next to the building. And so that was something that was actually a visible sign. All the workers went to the main cafeteria, but then there was also an executive cafeteria. So the executives would do that. And then if you were, part of the chosen few, you would go into the cafeteria at a specific time, and there were only like 12 of you that were there. You stay there and eat to your heart's content. No one would bother you. Toilets. This isn't very important, but there was a general toilet that anybody could use, and then in the area that I was with the managing director and the plant manager, we had an executive toilet with a key. No one else could get in there. So, yeah. And it was one of the first ones that I've seen that had the automatic flushers 45 years ago. Automatic flushers. I did it a couple times just to see it. It was great. Vacation length, to some extent, was also kind of hierarchy. When I turned 30 years old, since I was a manager or director, I got 6 weeks vacation and 13 paid holidays. Man, I tell you, this thing called my job was getting in the way of our traveling. It was. But they had a beer machine in the factory. Yeah, that doesn't sound good. Everyone lived up to the fact that you couldn't be drunk. And if you were caught drunk, you were let go for the rest of the day, and you weren't paid at all for that day. They had guest workers, and most of them were from Turkey, and they were treated very nicely. Quirks of the telephone. It wasn't, you tell them that, it wasn't automatic.
Yeah, not everybody had a telephone, and not everybody had a driver's license. So the first thing in those days, we would ask somebody, what's your telephone number and what's your driver's license, Let me see your driver's license. No, some people had neither.
And in the phone book, I was listed as John Churas, diploma engineer. Yeah. And I mean to tell you, every time that phone rang, I went, oh my God, I hope no one's going to ask me something. So I learned very quickly to say, ich spreche Deutsch, aber nur ein bisschen, just a little bit. So, and then the other thing is, it took me a while to figure this out, but when you're saying goodbye to someone on the phone, you don't say Auf Wiedersehen, because you're talking about I'll see you later, where I'll hear you later is Auf Wiederhören. And especially you didn't want to say that when it was a wrong number. Wiederhören, no, I don't want you to call again. Okay. Special activities, afternoon coffees.
Okay, that's my sister and me and our daughter and our German friend. And as an American, I always had a cup of coffee in the house, walking around with a cup of coffee. Well, that's not the way they do it. They drink coffee in the morning for breakfast, and then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's almost a special ceremony for coffee. And you invite people over if you want and serve cakes and stuff. Yeah. So, but other than that, they don't drink coffee all the time.
Is that where coffee clots come from?
Probably.
And Volksmarches. This was, they held these probably once a month or so, during the summertime mostly, I would imagine, because they were 5, 10, and 20 kilometers in length. And people would get out there en masse, and they would walk their they would sign up, for it, and so they knew that you actually did the 5, 10 or 20 kilometers. And then you were given a little badge that you could put on your walking stick. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, anyhow. And that's our nephew that came to visit us. He's carrying Julie, and Chrys is there, and you have no idea who that other guy was, but he was catching up quickly. And, yep, did you have a lot of family visitors?
Yeah, we had a lot. Your folks came, my folks came, my sister came, her son came. Yeah.
So we did. We had quite a few people come. And then my sister and her husband, When they found out that we were moving back to the United States, they said, oh, great, now you don't have to think of reasons why you can't come visit you. Okay, biking. That was another thing, people ask me to go biking. I've done it. I don't want to go biking anymore. But it was fun. There were great places to go biking. You can see long paved areas. I imagine you could have gotten.
Yeah. The woods were fairly manicured. Apparently, that's not ecologically a good thing to do. But anyway, you could see through them. But there were all these roads through these, and so then you could ride your bike for miles.
Yeah, they were for fire breaks.
Yeah.
And Sunday walks. And sometimes we just went out by ourselves onto a lane and walked on Sundays. As our daughter, I thought that this was a field of
Garlic.
but it's not.
No, it wasn't.
No. But we did find a field of garlic. The school system, you had preschool, which was kindergarten. You had a primary school, which was Grundschule. And then there was a comprehensive, then this is interesting, at the end of primary school, you took a test. Now, this is 45 years ago. Might not be the same now, but that determined whether you were going to go to like a trade school or to a university. And so if you were going to a trade school, you either went to a comprehensive school or a high school. And the comprehensive school was, they taught you life lessons and how to cook and how to sew and all the rest of that stuff. And if you tested into a high school so that you could then go into gymnasium after that, or into university after that, you were in a different place. But they made the decision when you're coming out of primary school.
About 12, yeah.
I couldn't tie my shoes when I was 12. You're all right now. Driving was an experience. We obtained international driver's licenses, which was so easy. We were just able to say, here's my driver's license from Wisconsin, United States. And they said, here's your international driver's license. And then we drove with that. Germans had 10 hours of classroom training. They had 20 hours of behind-the-wheel training, and it cost them about $500 to get a driver's license.
40 years
It
ago.
was 40 years ago. And again, you couldn't ask if it wasn't a form of identification because not everyone either could afford it or, would have a driver's license. The Autobahn. Everyone likes to think, oh, you can just drive fast and all that stuff. Yeah, you could. You really could. But there were 2 lanes. And the lanes were wider than our lanes are on the interstate. They're like 1.5 times as wide. And trucks were limited to 80 kilometers an hour, which was about 55 miles an hour. And they had to stay in the right lane. So if you came up on a truck and then you wanted to pass the truck, you had to look in your rearview mirror to make sure no one was coming in that left lane because people were normally driving over 100 miles an hour. And story also, if you had a car that could go 260 kilometers an hour, you were limited to 260 kilometers. You couldn't go any faster than that. And they gave you a placard on the back of your car that said 260 with a red line through it. 260 is 180 miles an hour. So if you were passing someone, the trucks are going 55 miles an hour. If you were going 55.25 miles an hour in order to pass them, you were going to be in that lane a long time. So you're looking behind you, and if you saw lights flashing, you got anything you could do to get out of that lane because you could have a motorcycle that was going really fast, or you could go have cars that were going that fast. And they expected that you were going to get out of there, so they didn't slow down until it was probably too late. And we used to say that the reason that they wore seat belts is so they could find the body. Oops, I haven't finished. Differences compared to the United States. They had automated ticketing if you were following too close or exceeded the speed limit when there was a limit or running a red light. They took a picture of your car with the light or whatever, and you were sent a ticket, and you had to pay it.
The person who owned the car.
Yeah, the
was
person
sent
that
a
owned the
ticket.
car. If you loaned the car out to someone, you still got the ticket. You were responsible for your car no matter what, and in fact, a lot of people went into locking their car in the garage so that it couldn't be stolen. And if you were convicted of a DUI, your license was taken away forever. There was no, I'm going to, get a lawyer and go up. Nope, it was gone. So when we went to, different cocktail parties, with the company, they were the ones that promoted it. It would be at a restaurant or at a hotel or something like that. They would get us taxis to get us home at night, so we wouldn't have to drive. But then you have to figure a way to get back to get the car the next day. Restaurant dining.
Well, for those of us who don't drink wine, it was a little difficult. They only had, in those days, they only had sparkling water, which isn't very refreshing. You could get hot tea, but not cold tea. And you could have sodas, and there was never ice in anything.
Yeah. They felt that ice would cause your stomach problems.
Well, also, you couldn't prove that it was boiled if it was
No,
ice.
that's true. Had a lot of wines. We were told that if you paid over 2 Deutschmark for a bottle of wine, which was about $1, you were spending too much. So you got table wine, and it was good. We drank it every once in a while. A dog might be under the table right next to you, and you wouldn't know it until the people got up to leave, and then son of a gun, there's a dog there. Yeah. They were very well behaved. Very limited number of children at restaurants, probably all just people that were, visitors. Waiters and waitresses, it was a profession to them. It wasn't just a part-time job. They learned how to do it. They were paid properly. It was a wonderful, thing to see them deliver the food to the table. They would, all of the, like the asparagus and, beans and all the rest of the stuff that they were side dishes, they would scoop them off of really large trays and put them onto your plate. It was really beautiful. It was a fun thing to watch. The dessert cart was terrible. They brought it by, and you just had to get something. It was terrible. Okay, we're talking about around St. Leon. This was the view out of our back porch. And Chris, what did you see coming out?
Oh, yeah, well, so one time I was sitting on the back porch, and I looked up, and a tank came out of there. Yeah, and you're like, oh, my God, I haven't been listening to the news. Where are the Russians right now? But it was the Americans playing games in the woods. Yeah.
Well, this is our front door, and the side, now that it's finished and everything, it looked a lot better. Again, this is the, out the back of the house.
Yeah, and so that was the other road that went by us. But if you notice, this is our garden out the back, and there are no steps down because children don't play in the garden. They have to go to the playground to play. Yeah. And this is, when you're coming into St. Leon, this is what you'd see. A lot of these little towns, you'd see the steeples, so you'd know.
Yeah. And one thing that I want you to pay attention to is the area right around the outside of the village, almost all the way around. You'll see pictures, that's where they have their personal gardens.
And this was a neighbor, a friend of mine lived across from this, and we thought that picture was beautiful.
Yeah, you know that they didn't paint their house every 4 years. Birds.
Yeah. The Germans love birds. I mean, not just fancy birds like we keep in the house. I think they like every bird. And so this big tented thing over there was with birds.
And on TV, in between programs, they wouldn't have commercials because the commercials ran from 9:30 until 10 o'clock at night. All the commercials. they don't know marketing, I guess.
Well, it was state TV.
Yeah, it was state TV, but in between the different shows, they would have a camera trained on birds.
Birdcage.
Birdcage. And you see a bird floating around. It's kind of nice. Rolladins, that's the things that close up the windows. They could completely blacken a room during the midday. And so, for those of us that today take naps at noon, that would have been a nice thing to have.
Well,
But
but also, we were living in a part of the country where it got light really early. If you wanted your kids to stay in bed, you close those rolladins.
you could open them up just a little bit, and it would filter some light through, but it was like a night light, that's all. Just some of the gardening that they did around their homes was just beautiful. It really was. Anyhow. There's a fixer-upper there on the left-hand side, and that was probably from the 1700s, right next to one that was probably built in the early 1900s, or just on a street. And this over here, we talked about the birds.
Right, that was the bird cage on my girlfriend's house. And I think they had a hole in it and another cage on the back so they could go in when it was cold or bad.
I was saying about all the private gardens on the outside. This is basically what it looked like on the outside. It's kind of cool. Then as you were going down the streets, you would see a lot of these gates that were closed. Shoot. Well, that people had their privacy. If they opened them up, you would see things like, there could be a barn back there, or it could be, that's where the real house is. So it was just a revelation.
These were called hofs. So they, but yeah, I mean, they might be keeping pigs in that barn. You never know.
Oh, the Hasen.
Yes.
Rabbits. Our friends raised rabbits, and you know how they did it.
Which was kind of old-fashioned, according to one of the people that we knew, but still. They would get a male and a female, and when the female had her babies, they'd kill the male and eat it. And then as the babies grew and got big enough, they would either save a female, and then they would eat the others progressively. And one time I went back to the United States to see my folks, and John was there, and my girlfriend and her family invited John over to dinner and served one of the little Hasen that they had been petting every day.
I knew the
And
name.
not only that, but for special guests like that, they served all the, the liver.
Organ meat.
Organ meats.
And
And
I
watched
hated
to see how
organ
much he
meat.
enjoyed it.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
I had to smile. I remember what it tasted like, and I said, never again. Okay, this was the Rot House. You hear people talking about, the Rot House and all that stuff. This is the Rot House from St. Leon. Now we're talking about Heidelberg. This was a picture that was taken by Warren's son, like about 6 weeks ago. No, this is the one from him. This is one that I took.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the one that he took, and when you put them together, these are 45 years apart. Did you notice the one, there's a guy that actually fixed that one roof tile, that red roof tile? Now it sticks out like a sore thumb. I don't know, but not much changed. This was the market on Saturday, and yes.
I'm apologizing that I was late. I fell asleep, but I watched you upstairs.
Well, nice.
Well,
I lived in Heidelberg,
Mm-hmm.
81 to 82, and I worked in Mannheim. And when I heard you talk about Mannheim, I had to come and tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
You all lived there, but I didn't know exactly when you were there.
Yeah, we left in 85,
We were there when you were there.
Yeah.
We didn't take our children, we didn't take furniture and anything, they just furnished everything for me.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going without my child.
You were 10 miles from me, or 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you weren't, we didn't know that. Yeah. Okay, well, this is Chrys and Julie there in the market. And this is just a normal picture of Heidelberg. It really is. You see this, a lot of people take it.
Yeah, go
Now,
ahead.
this is interesting because this was taken during the Second World War by my father-in-law, and that was one that we took. You notice they finally got some color, on the bridge. But this is part of the old bridge. And my father-in-law was there, like I say, during World War II. He was a doctor, and his clinic was that building right there. We were able to go look at his clinic. It's not a clinic now, but anyhow, it was just kind of interesting. And you remember the Europatia Hof Hotel? Did you see that? Okay, well, that's a really snazzy hotel in Heidelberg, and that's where all the officers were put up. So anyhow, he'd like to look at that. Again, this is looking at the Heidelberg Castle. Now, this wall right here, see how thick it is? That's where all the explosives were kept. And it took the French 2 times to finally demolish it. Didn't do it the first time. This is the inside of the
Castle Hof.
of the Castle Hof. But you were saying they.
Oh, they have kept it as a ruin. There's only like 1 or 2 rooms in there, and then down below there's a great big cask where they have wine. But and then I think there's a pharmacy museum on one side. But they didn't try to build it back. They're just maintaining it that way.
And about once a month during the summertime, they would have a burning of the castle. And so there would be all sorts of fireworks and all that stuff.
When
You
the
know-
Swedish came, they burned it.
Yeah, but the way I'm thinking about this, they love dogs, right? And they don't like children that are crying. So why would they have all of this stuff where they have their dogs and everything? I don't understand it. Okay, some of the things that we learned. This is, hey, we're doing real well. We're almost done.
Good.
We would have done it again. It was an experience. It was really, really amazing to think that, we never thought we would visit Europe, let alone live there. And we got to do a lot of traveling. The Germans were flattered if you spoke German to them, even if it was a broken German, or demolished German as I spoke. Parallel parking.
Oh, yeah, when we were first there, we were parking the car, and they do something that Americans don't do. They would bump up on the curb. You could put 2 wheels on the curb, and so we were fussing and fussing with this car, and we looked up, and here was an old man just standing there watching us. And when we were done, he said, "Yep," walked away.
And rules and customs were interchangeable. There, this thing about sweeping the street, it was really a custom. It wasn't a rule, but you did it. Nuances mattered.
Oh, yeah. So in Germany, babies are never little and cute or tiny. They have to be, actually, they can't even be pretty. They have to be smart. They have to sleep through the night. They have to have big cheeks because that means they eat a lot. But, so the American whole idea of, oh, isn't she cute? She's so tiny. What a pretty little thing. No, not it.
Yeah. They were
That it
brav.
was, they were brav. They were brave. They were quiet. They were, and you'd talk about his cheeks. Yeah.
And our U.S. friends did hold it against us. When we moved back to the United States, we said, hey, you want to see some slides of Europe? No. Anyhow, so this was a photo taken by Mary on in October of this year. Yeah, so, and Chus is another way to say goodbye to your friends. Yeah, so Chus. That's it.